lo and behold, that was my secret to becoming the best student in that career of 2-3 years. And I became the best student in 1977, the overall best student in Lagos State. All my friends who were still in uni when I started this career began to graduate and get married, and the husband was not coming. And people were saying, oh, it's because the societal norms at that time didn't favor girls, and it still does not. I went through cases of near rape and all of that, even within the office environment.
Did men want to know what a woman brought to the table?
Nobody asked to bring it to the table. Feminist is someone who is interested in
Hi everyone, you're welcome once again to the Connecting Deep podcast with Miles, and this is our second episode. We recently celebrated International Women's Day, and I thought that we'll bring on an amazing woman to share her trajectory, her story, and what she does for women, and I'm sure everyone will be able to take something away from it. Before we go into the episode, I'd like to invite you to be part of this incredible community. Please subscribe. Please engage with the other content on the channel. So apart from the podcast, I deliver talking head videos every week. So interact with the content, like, share, leave comments in the comment section. I like to interact with you in the comment section, and I'm sure you'll find a ton of value here. Thank you very much. Enjoy the episode. Hello everyone, good day wherever you're watching us from. You're welcome to another episode of the Connecting Deep podcast. My name is Miles McCaffrey and I'm your host. And today is going to be another exciting episode of the Connecting Deep podcast. I have with me today a very special guest. Today I have with me Mrs. Morenike Omaiboje. She is a non-profit manager. She's an HR consultant, management consultant. She is also a self-defense coach. I just found out today, and I've known her for a long time. So I'm waiting to hear when she started her karate journey. She is the director of programs for the Women Consortium of Nigeria. It's called WOCON. And she's also an international election observer with the African Union. And today is quite interesting. I've known Madam Morenike for many years now. She's like a mother to me. In fact, it's interesting because at some point in my life, I lived in a house. Okay, so she's like a mother to me. But beyond that, she's one of those people that when you look around you and you look at your list of associates, she's one of those people that you would always be thankful that you have on your list. So whether you're looking for someone for guidance or some sort of advice or any other kind of resource, she's just that one person that you can always run to. And I'm very excited to have her on the podcast because she has a lot of fantastic stories. Her life story in itself is quite interesting, and I'm not sure how much of her life she has told before now. But that's what you get with the Connecting Deep podcast. You're going to get a lot of exclusive stuff here. So, Mommy, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Miles. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here. When I was thinking about this episode, one of the things that came to mind was that we just celebrated International Women's Day, and I was like, this episode is not just going to be for women, but I think that women will gain a ton of value. Okay? From this episode, Mommy has some interesting stories, personal stories of her own trajectory. I believe we can learn a lot from. So I'm going to be asking you. So first of all, Mommy, just tell us a bit about yourself generally, who you are and what you do.
Hello, everyone. My name again is Morenike Omaiboje. I'm currently board member and director at Women's Consortium of Nigeria. We're a non-profit and we promote the rights of women and girls, and we hold a special consultative status with the United Nations. My life journey has been very interesting, but a bit about myself is that I will call myself a multi-potentialite. I'm into several things, and starting out my career in the administrative management space, moving into human resources, moving into non-profit, and now, with my HR background, and now empowerment self-defense coach. So it's really been a journey indeed. But I started out, studying languages because that was my interest. And in those days, in the 70s, what you do is you look at how can you package it. It still happens today. How can you package your career in a way that you'll be standing out? So at that time, I could put my bilingual studies along with a secretarial exposure. So I was like, a bilingual secretary in the mid-70s. That was my first training, after which I moved into human resources. But that set me up on being the best student in the polytechnic where I went here in Nigeria, and I found myself in the oil industry. So my career started from there, and I have a 22 years career into American oil companies. It was a great privilege of my life, and it set me out to what my career is today. So everything I am, I can say God used that, to help me to come into what I am doing today. I'm multi-talented today because of the exposure that I had. So after so-called retirement, because I'm one of those people who would not like to ever retire, but after moving away from paid employment, I ventured into non-profit, and today we are working with women and girls all across Nigeria to fight all forms of violence against women and girls. So that's my story, basically. And of course, I'm a mother, and will be a grandmother soon. But
don't mind her; she's already a grandmother. Anyway,
so here's the story to start with.
I'd really want us to break the story down because one of the things that we like to do on this podcast is we want details. I remember growing up, successful people around here hardly gave us details. You would read a successful person's book, and chapter 1 is all God. Chapter 2, he did it. Chapter 3, he has done it. And young people found it very difficult, especially for our own successful people. You could read foreign books, and they would be more detailed about what they did. But around here, we didn't have too much of that. So I'd like to go into details. I know that your journey really began from writing your WAEC. You had an experience that led to your family making a decision that kind of shaped how things turned out for you. So could you tell us that story?
Yeah, very interesting part of my life. I was one of those people who didn't even know what I wanted to do. You ask me, what do I want to be? The things I'll be telling you. Those days, I finished WAEC in 1974, and that's 51 years now. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my family sat down, my eldest sister and my mom and other stakeholders just decided this girl cannot go through the rigor of university. Let her start and do something from home. So we looked at my WAEC results and saw that I was very good with languages. I had A's in all my languages, even Yoruba, French, English. I did very, very well. I was not a maths major in any way like most people. So the journey began. Let's do linguistics. We couldn't get that to do. And the trend then in the mid-70s was, typing, shorthand, secretarial studies was trending. And that was how we said, let's do bilingual secretaryship. That appealed to me, but I knew nothing about that other side of the game, which is, all these commercial things, commercial studies. We didn't do it in my school. I didn't go to a commercial school because that time you could either do commercial or, do the basic stuff. Cutting long story short, I went into this course and I excelled so much. One of the secrets of my excellence was the fact that my mom was very insightful, and she said, you finished school in December. I think we were the last set who finished school in December. and we wouldn't go into higher institution until September. So in those months, where I even worked. I remember I worked in First Bank. Briefly as holiday worker, and then I went into studying some of those subjects that I'll be studying in the secretarial school. Lo and behold, that was my secret to becoming the best student in that career of 2-3 years, and I became the best student. Somehow, the commissioner of education at that time gave me an award. The award is still at home. Gave me an award in 1977 when I graduated from that school, being the overall best student in Lagos State. After that, the next thing I realized, I was 19 plus, and I'm a November child. So I won't be 19 until end of that year. Employers began to troop into our school. At that time, there were no computers. So those who could do typing and all of that were in high demand. It was a highly demanding, career. So they came and they were looking, banks everywhere they came. And that's how an American oil company came, and they wanted the best student. And here I was, this tiny little girl. I was 19 and I got recruited into this American oil company that if we mention the name, everybody knows it. So it wasn't anything. And I started my career. So I don't know whether I answered.
Okay, so yeah, you did. So you're 19 at this point. You get this job into this oil company. And I can imagine that for a 19-year-old girl getting an oil job then, today, oil is not like the main thing. These days is tech. We're shifting globally. There's a shift, from industrialization to technology. And
Absolutely.
So the tech jobs are what the oil jobs used to be. So I can imagine that at 19, getting an oil job, that was a big deal. You were making a lot of money at the time. Yeah. How did that change your life?
Well, everyone who lived with me saw the transformation. 12 months after I got that job, I got a car, a 21-year-old girl getting a car and just doing my own thing. And the next thing, I'm already flying all over the world. Every holiday, I have somewhere to fly to. And all my siblings are graduates. I even have an ambassador brother. Nobody had that kind of exposure. I became very resourceful, and I was still at home. I was able to do things in the home. I told my mom, we need to do this. We need to buy a color TV because we had the black and white, My life changed completely, and people began to wonder what's happening. So I remembered that gradually all my friends who were still in uni when I started this career began to graduate and get married, and husband was not coming. And people were saying, it's because she has a car. Mommy, can you tell her to drop that car so that men can see her? First of all, they wouldn't like the fact that such a young girl has a car. Secondly, they wouldn't like the idea that, she's already settled like that. Men like to see, the societal norms at that time didn't favor girls, and it still does not. But what I'm saying is that it was worse in those days. So my response had always been to my mom and to everyone, my aunties and everyone who said that, was that if I have to drop my car for a man to marry me, then that man is not worth my salt. Is not somebody that is for me. Somebody who is for me would do that. So I went through a lot of that. And then I had, tried to do some dates. And the dates would be that me, the woman, will be the one who has a car, and the young man is still in university and all of that. I was way ahead of people. And in terms of being liquid as well as well. Financially, it was also a challenge. Men felt like, wow, but I would say that I met quite a few men also who felt, fulfilled in themselves, irrespective of
confident.
what they were confident, irrespective of what I had been able to make with myself. Yes, the societal norms were worse then for women or against women. I went through a lot of that, but I stood my feet. I wasn't yet a feminist then. I didn't know my right from my leg, but something within me is confirming the fact now that I had always been feminist in nature. I stood my ground and I said, if I have a car and God has blessed me and this is the path I had to tread, then I am ready to face it. So I went on and on until I met a man who just returned from abroad, and he said, but is this your story? You were privileged to start working in a good place early. So if that's your story, then so be it. And we got married, but I can say that all my friends had 2 children each when I got married. And I remember that it was challenging to even get a chief bridesmaid because everybody had married. Yeah.
So I mean, it's something that women still face today. And I'm sure that back then in the 70s and the 80s, it would have been a lot worse. And from some of the things you've said, I mean, your mother's friends literally told her, tell this girl to drop her car so that she could find a man, but you insisted, and you got married. So how did you progress along, on the job at the time, being 19? I'm sure I don't know if you had situations at work where, people tried to take advantage of the fact that you were young and, things like that. What was your experience in the workplace?
Yes. I got in there. I didn't see any 19-year-old. I didn't even see any 22-year-old. So it was a very trying time of my life. And that's why I'm not mentioning, any names, but I went through sexual harassment of all sorts. And I was myself, single, young, there was money, there was affluence. Like I said, I started traveling all over the world. I had places where I bought my gold. I had countries where I bought my leather and all of that. And, there was a lot of sexual harassment issues. There were no exposures like we have now. I didn't know what I know now. And I would get home and tell my mom. And I would cry and cry. Before I can even tell my mom, I would have gone through so much more. I went through cases of near rape and all of that, even within the office environment. But, God helped me to take my stand. I don't know whether it was God, to be frank, but I took my stand. I was strong and resilient in what I wanted, but it was never easy. So when I grew older and became a mother, I told myself my children will not be rushed by me, by us as parents, into getting into secondary, at age 9 or age 10, because those things would affect those children later. I was a fighter, so I fought. In fact, a lot of people in the places I work will think that those men really dated me because I was always this man will call me into his room and, do this and talk about this and talk about this. But I overcame those things eventually. I became strong. I fought, for myself.
Okay.
And
did you have any, as a young lady, did you have any mentors? Did you, at that time, was the concept of mentoring huge? And did you have anyone that guided you?
At that time, information was very, very scarce. Okay. There were no internets. There were no telephones, no mobile phones. There were no emails. And information was very scarce. But majority of these things are embedded in our culture. You always have an aunt who is not your direct relation, who is not related to you in any way, but who you can always go and meet. These things are natural. They come natural. They could be your neighbors. So we have aunties here and there in church that you can speak to. I can't tell my mom about it. Do you know that I'm facing sexual harassment? In fact, I want to go back to school now. I want to go back to the university. I am tired of doing that. And they would tell me, go and tell mommy this. Go and say this to your mom. Go and do that. So when I'm going to approach my mom, who also was educated. My mom read nursing in England, you know, in the 40s, 50s, you know, but it was the same societal norm. It was the same ideology of girls should be heard and not be seen. They belong to the kitchen. They must bring husband even when they are whatever, you know. But I had mentors who I spoke to about some of the challenges I had. And most of the time in those days, we had peer pressure because we spoke to our friends who didn't know better than us. And whatever they tell us, whether it's wrong or right, was what we do. There wasn't a proliferation of churches like we have them now in their numbers. That it wasn't, you know, happening. There weren't young pastors who would mentor you or anything. You know, life was different, but we had natural mentors around us, like church members and all of that. Okay. And when they tell me, oh, go tell mommy, we know she's going to say no, but you just put your foot down and say you want to go back to school, or that you are going through a lot of this, because the ideology our mothers had at that time was that, how are you dressing? And how do you comport yourself? Why are you the only woman there? Why are you the ones they are talking to? You face what you have to do. You are the one who said you want to do what you want to do. So face it. Wow. That was the situation I found myself.
That's interesting. Okay, so at some point you moved from the first oil company to the second oil company. I think also an American company.
Also, yeah.
So how did that move happen? I think that's an interesting story. How did it happen?
Yes, so the first American oil company I worked, I was very happy with myself. As far as I was concerned, as a young girl, that was the best thing that could happen to me in the situation where my parents didn't have, you know, a company or anything. I was just headhunted for like that. So one day I was sitting in the library at break time reading the newspapers. At that time it was Daily Times. And I was reading and I saw an international oil company on Victoria Island is seeking for an executive assistant for their managing director, an American managing director. And the requirements was that that person must be 25 years old, must have worked in another oil company for 5 years, and must be XYZ. Everything in that advert was talking about me. And as a young girl, I was 25 already, had worked in this first oil company for 5 years. And I was like, wow, they're talking about me. In fact, I even showed my friend. I said, see, they're talking about me. I'm going to, you know, try this out. And interestingly, I dared to try it out. And what happened? Eventually, as I moved into that organization, I got the job. And the recruiter herself, the person who was leaving that seat for a managerial seat and wanted the replacement, told me 215 persons applied, 40 were shortlisted, and I got the job. So for me, young ladies out there, that shows that you need to be daring, especially in the times we are now. In the times that we were then, I'm sure that 5 naira would take me from the mainland where I lived in Yaba then to work in Boshere, you know, on Lagos Island before Obalende. I'm sure, you know, 5 naira would take me to and back, or even less in 1977. But now, what do we have? We have a lot of competition. So to the young girls out there, I would say that we must dare to, you know, be different. We must stand up and do daring things. We must, you know, rise up to not follow the norm and do something different. It was like a joke. I didn't read anything. There were no outlets for me. There was no internet or AI for me to go and see how do I comport myself in an interview. Nobody mentored me. My mentors had never had the kind of exposure I had. But 5 years in that place, having traveled wide, I was able to defy whatever it was in that organization. I got the job. And for me, if that happened, anything positive can happen to us.
Fantastic. So let's progress a bit. So, of course, you were in all of this, and eventually you said you did meet your husband. And how was it? You were still in oil and gas. So as a young lady, just got married, trying to start a family, also trying to build a career in oil and gas. Around here, I think sometimes it's really difficult for women to win in every department. When it comes to men, society just labels you as the breadwinner, and so you're given a pass. As long as you're able to go out there and succeed, you're fine. But I think that women are judged differently. You talk about the home front, you talk about, raising the kids, even though it's supposed to be a team thing, but you find out that society expects more from women. Homemaking, making sure that their supplies at home and things are running smoothly. How did you navigate all of that?
Well, like I said, there were no internets, there was no email, there was no access to international information or universal information except the television. There was no CNN. So what we did was just go to trainings, the trainings that we have also become training coordinators and consultants today, maybe one or two trainings that they sent you. But I just did what I could. I was a homemaker. At the same time, I was a part breadwinner. I was a mother. I was a career woman. So what I did was, I worked late hours, and because I worked with an American MD, I worked with 3 American MDs on that career before I moved into training in that same organization. And what happened was I was picked from under my husband's roof at 5 a.m. every blessed day, Monday to Friday. I was picked at 5 a.m. and I do not return until 8 p.m. So what I did was, my children, I have three children. Some of them would have slept. The youngest would probably have slept. And I'm going there, I'm shaking her. I'm wondering whether she will wake up so I can see them. And if I'm not careful in the morning, I have gone again before they wake up because I leave at 5. But a friend or relative or sister, a sibling or someone will say, I read something, or maybe you two stumbled into it. You had to go into books those days because there was no social media. So say, so a friend, I remember the friend, Temilola, she told me, I read a book. And they said, you can come back home and spend time individual with these children in this way. So when you come back, no matter how late it is, you tell them, my son, don't sleep. Maybe the first child, don't sleep. We're going out together. You go for a walk around the neighborhood or take them to a fast food, sit down and say, how have you been? And all of that. And I remembered I did a lot of that. But the truth is, women out there, girls out there, the truth is, if the table turned around, I know much better now. And a shout out to all the career women. There's nothing wrong in having a career because there would always be women who have to work. I fall into that category of women who had to work. I had to support whatever my husband was bringing in, and then I have children. There's nothing wrong with it, but you must know your onions and know that these children are not secondary. They should be priority in whatever you are doing. Otherwise, when they grow old, you will see that the neglect will show and it will not count in your favor.
Wow. Okay, so this is a joke question, if I may say, but I do want a serious answer. So these days, there's a question that we hear a lot. What do women bring to the table? That's a question we hear a lot these days. First of all, what do women bring to the table?
Yes.
Now, I personally think that's a modern question, but I would ask you, did men ask that question in your time? Did men ask what women, because you just talked about contributing your own to the home, and I don't know, how were the dynamics back in the day? Did men want to know what a woman brought to the table?
Well, there was no need to. Our first, the home where we lived when we got married in 1984 cost 250 naira. Yes, 250 naira, or maybe it was 250,000. I can't remember, but I think it was 200 naira. I don't know, about 250,000 naira, and that was affordable. It was easy for the man. And even at that time, it looks affordable now, but it won't be. It's not something that was affordable. Men didn't ask those questions. There were two categories of women, just like it is today. You have women who are career women, and you had women. You have men who would prefer to have a homemaker who will sit at home and not do anything. That has always been the case. And sometimes those things are not intentional. When you say a woman should be a homemaker, she may be a graduate, but she's looking for a job she can't find. So she's there and her husband is happy. So there has always been career women in those days. Women didn't ask what we would bring to the table because they were men. Indeed. They were men indeed. The society helped them. My husband would give me, the upkeep easily when he had to, and he wasn't a businessman in any way. He had a car, I had my car. We were able to manage ourselves. We never owed rent because life was good. Nobody asked what you were bringing to the table.
So it's certain that that's a modern question, and I've always thought so. I've always thought that our fathers never asked that question. What do women bring to the table? I think it's a modern question, and I'm planning to do a talking head video addressing that question one of these days. I think that question evolved, or rather, sorry, that question came out from a place of the evolution of society, in the sense that all of a sudden the cost of living became very high. Yeah. And today, to be honest with you, we live in Lagos, Nigeria, and the ideal situation is a two-income home where two people are bringing something to the table, because the cost of living is astronomical. It's actually very crazy. And so it's a modern question, but let's put that aside. We'll have that discussion another day. So let's come back to your mommy. You just mentioned something. You said that you noticed, you didn't know you were a feminist, but now you are a feminist. And I don't know what your definition of feminism is, because I think that when I think of feminism, because of social media, we're exposed to all sorts of people. There are feminists on Twitter. There are people all over the world who have their own feminist movement going on. And for some of us growing up, some of the earliest feminist movements we were exposed to were from women who were very angry at men, and I personally thought feminism was really just about bitterness against men. These people are bitter and they are bitter and they are bitter. But what is feminism? How do you define feminism?
Feminist is someone who is interested in protecting, promoting, or supporting the rights of women and girls. My definition, not a book definition. Okay. Right. Someone who is interested in the lot of women. So I'm a non-profit manager, but you can be a feminist in your home. I have a lot of friends who are feminists. I have a lot of friends who are non-feminist, and they are totally averse to feminism, because the general impression is the feminists they are not married, they are not happy women, they hate men, like you say, and all of that. Yeah. But feminism is just about protecting the rights of women and girls and looking at how it is. So you are going on the road, for example, and you see a young girl who has just been raped, and the mother and all the women in the neighborhood are going to the police station, and you join them because you have interest in that child. Say, what happened? Where is the man? Let's go to him. It's as simple as that. You are carrying out feminist attitudes by doing that. So feminists are saying a woman should also be part of the decision making, especially for issues affecting her. Feminists are saying we have just 2% of representation of women in the Senate or anywhere else in the legislature. Let's do something about it. Let more women come together. And in your neighborhood, you are speaking out and you are saying, this should not be so. A man is beating his wife next door, and you are standing and saying no to this. This cannot be right. Your wife is supposed to be your treasure. If you are doing all of those things, you are a feminist. Of course, when this thing started, maybe in the 19th century, maybe there were some women who took it, overboard, and who now eventually hated men because of that. But for me, I think that is just an assumption. Feminists are happily married, family women, settled, with husbands who understand what they do. And there are men we call he for she's. He for she, a he who is standing for she, who is pro she. A lot of these feminists have husbands like that who are helping them to even do more for womanhood. Nobody in the many years and decades has stood up for women. Women were relegated to the background. But today, because feminists are standing up and rearing their heads everywhere, you can see that women's issues have become global issues.
You had a close relationship with the late Bimbo Dukoya, and I'd like you to tell us a bit about that, because I remember having a discussion with someone recently, and I was telling them that today, when you look at female preachers in the country, I think arguably the most prominent female preacher in the country right now will be Bishop. I think she's a bishop now, Funke Felix Adejumo. I think she's very prominent. I think that most women speakers usually speak in women events, but she's one of the few women that she stands with men. She stands amongst men. And even at that, I still think nobody else, it still comes close to the legacy of Bimbo Dukoya. I think she was very international, back in the day when women speakers, really didn't have a voice. When I think about Bimbo Dukoya, I think that even in that time, maybe the only person that I would say was equally international as she was probably also the late Archbishop Benson in the house. I think Bimbo Dukoya was, even when I lived outside Nigeria, we watched her on TV. Bimbo was just everywhere. She's one of those women that I think was globally admired. Tell us, how did you meet Bimbo Dukoya and what was your relationship with her?
Yes, Bimbo, I was going to a fellowship, a non-denominational fellowship in Federal Palace Hotel. It was called Full Gospel Businessmen then. So it was a once a month thing, and I had gone quite a few months. And one day she walked up to me and said, "Oh, I like you. You're so beautiful. Can I be your friend?" Bimbo is very vibrant, and she doesn't have anything called shyness in her dictionary. So she came forward to me like that, and you won't believe that was the beginning of a long-lasting relationship. We were very close friends, and this was before Fountain of Life. This was even before she had her children, but she was already married. And she supported me in all the challenges of life. She supported me. I was growing up in my faith in Jesus Christ at that time. And this must have been like maybe 1985, 86, 87, And I remembered that when she had her first baby, her husband, who was working then in NMPC, had to be out on an official assignment outside Lagos. And he said to me, "Please make sure you are there when Bimbo falls into labor." And when I think Toluwani was born, the first child, I hope I got it right. When she was born, I was there. I was privileged to be there. So we had a very, very warm relationship, cordial. We were family friends, and she was very interested in the cause of women. And she had Single and Married. She started all of that. And then Fountain of Life started. I visited. I was, warmly welcome. And they announced, "Oh, there's a friend in the house," and all of that. And eventually, As Fountain of Life began to grow, we found out that we couldn't see her like before anymore. But every step of my life and some of the things I achieved, she supported me in making decisions. I remembered I went to her for a very personal thing, and she said, "You know the answer, Morenike. You know the answer. Fight for your right." Something about my home and all of that. Fight for your right. Don't allow anyone to mess you up. You know what you have. She was there for us. And if we are celebrating International Women's Day in this season of March, Bimbo is warmly remembered because she was there for Nigerian women and girls.
Wow, fantastic. So as we wrap up this session, what would be your message to, as someone who is an advocate for women's rights worldwide? What would be your message to young women and young girls?
My message would be from my own very life, which is be audacious. Mm-hmm. Be audacious. Don't let anything set you back. Talking about me being almost 70 and saying that I am a self-defense coach. In 2022, I was invited. They didn't know how old I was. I was invited to Rwanda to talk about empowerment, self-defense, which would help to reduce violence against women. So women will know how to push these things away when they come, with a view to reducing that. I went, I didn't know what I was going to meet, and I was in class, wearing leggings and all of that, and doing all those things, learning how to do those things with women who were 20, 30 years younger. Nobody knew my age until I told them, because I wasn't even carrying the age on my head. I dared to be audacious. I was audacious. The way I do my things, I'd say I'm a risk taker. Nothing. When an opportunity comes now, an opportunity came for me in this global self-defense thing, to be a solo teacher in some parts of the world, not even where I live. I'm ready to take that challenge. The first thing that comes to my mind is I'm able. It doesn't come to my mind that I'm 2 years to 70. It doesn't. So in class one day, I just whispered to one of the directors, to one of the coaches, that this is who I am. They're like, unbelievable. In 2022, so this is 2025, 3 years younger. Like, what? 65? They couldn't believe it. So for me, if I can do anything, anybody can do anything. When an opportunity comes my way, age does not come in. I have gone all the way to India to go and speak to Indian girls in 2013. I didn't know anyone. I've never been to south of India. I've never been to any part of India. I went, and my children were the ones who are 30 years younger. They were the ones who were scared. Do you know them? What are you going to do there? I said, let's go. Is it not to talk to girls? We will go and talk to girls. I went and came back, and nothing happened. We had a deal. I'll pay my ticket. You pay my accommodation. I'll talk to your girls. And I talked to the girls. When I came back, they wanted to teach some of them how to read and write. I did a book all by myself, trying to teach them, to start a literacy class. But we never were able to do it because the coordinator got distracted. So for me, I would say, be audacious, be yourself. Don't be anyone else. Be yourself. Believe in yourself and make excellence a watchway and a watchword. Happy International Women's Day.
All right, guys. So we'd like to thank Madam Morenike. This has been an amazing time, and I'm sure that everyone has gotten a ton of value from this. Please, you can follow our social media handles. We'll sort of put them on the screen so you can get them and follow her and follow Wokon and the work that they do. And also follow the channel if you're not already subscribed to our channel, Miles McCaffrey, the Connecting Deep podcast. Please subscribe, like, comment. You can try and interact with myself and with Mommy in the comment section. We'll be happy to respond to you. Thank you so much. And we'll probably have another episode next week. All the best. Stay
All right.
intentional. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.